no touchdowns or interceptions to argue about. But make no mistake, this is where championships are often built or lost. The Cowboys are staring at a long list of important decisions involving their coaching staff, free agency, and the draft. And while some of those decisions are still ahead, one major move has already been made. Dallas has found its new defensive coordinator, hiring former Eagles defensive backs coach and pass game coordinator Christian Parker. At first glance, this isn't a flashy, headline-grabbing name, and for some fans, that immediately raised eyebrows. But when you dig deeper into the process and the reasoning behind the hire, it becomes clear that this was not a rushed or casual decision. This was a deliberate choice rooted in vision, fit, and long-term planning. Speaking at the Senior Bowl, Cowboys COO and co-owner Stephen Jones shed light on what separated Parker from the rest of the field. And it's important to understand just how wide that field actually was. The Cowboys interviewed 9 different candidates for the defensive coordinator position, which already tells you something about how seriously they took this search. In the past, Dallas has sometimes been criticized for being too comfortable, too insular, or too quick to promote from within. This time, they cast a wide net. According to Jones, all 9 candidates were qualified, which makes the final decision even more interesting. What ultimately stood out was not just experience or resume, but alignment. Mike Schottenheimer, now leading the team as head coach, had a clear vision of what he wanted the Cowboys' defense to look like and how it needed to complement the offense. That word, complement, is key. This wasn't about building a defense in isolation. It was about creating a unit that works in harmony with how Dallas wants to play football overall. Christian Parker's vision matched that idea. Jones talked about the personality of the defense Parker wants to build, the culture he wants to establish, and the creativity he can bring schematically. He didn't just talk in generic football language. He presented specific ideas and wrinkles that would fit the personnel already on the roster. That's a huge deal. The Cowboys are not starting from scratch. They have talented players on defense, but talent alone hasn't been enough. What's been missing is consistency, adaptability, and at times identity. Now, Parker's work is really just beginning. Hiring the defensive coordinator is step 1. Step 2 is building out the rest of the defensive staff, and according to Stephen Jones, that process is already well underway. The team has conducted several virtual interviews and is expected to begin in-person interviews shortly. Ideally, the Cowboys would like to have the full defensive staff in place by the weekend, but Jones also acknowledged that it might take longer, and that's okay. This is not an area where you want to rush. Position coaches shape players on a daily basis, and getting the right voices in those rooms matters just as much as who's calling plays on Sunday. While the coaching staff has been one major topic, the roster itself presents even bigger questions, starting with one of the most productive players on the team, wide receiver George Pickens. Pickens is arguably the Cowboys' most significant upcoming unrestricted free agent, coming off a career-best season in which he recorded 1,429 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. He wasn't just productive, he was essential. When the Cowboys needed a big play, Pickens was often the guy delivering it. Unsurprisingly, Stephen Jones didn't dive into contract specifics, and that's typical for this stage of the offseason. But he did make one thing clear. The Cowboys want George Pickens back in Dallas. That statement alone tells you how highly the organization values him. Of course, wanting a player back and actually getting a deal done are two very different things, especially in today's NFL, where elite wide receivers command massive contracts. Jones did note that the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis has historically been a place where meaningful conversations happen between teams, players, and agents. With the Combine scheduled from February 23rd to March 2nd, that time frame could be critical in determining whether Pickens' future remains in Dallas or if negotiations drag on into free agency. The Cowboys will have to decide how far they're willing to go financially and whether Pickens is a cornerstone piece or a luxury they can't afford. Another area where there will be some continuity is special teams. Despite significant turnover on the coaching staff, Nick Sorensen will return as special teams coordinator for the 2026 season. However, Stephen Jones was very clear that retention does not equal satisfaction. The Cowboys expect improvement in the third phase of the game. They believe they have solid pieces, a reliable returner, a punter, a kicker, and a snapper, but execution has to be better. Jones also made an interesting point about how defensive talent often translates to stronger special teams play. Players who can tackle, run, and play with discipline on defense are usually the same players who excel on special teams. In that sense, improving the defense overall could have a ripple effect across the entire roster. One of the more encouraging updates from Jones involved running back Javonte Williams. Williams had an outstanding 2025 season, rushing for 1,201 yards and 11 touchdowns, and he proved to be a consistent, physical presence in the Cowboys offense. Jones confirmed that the team has already spoken with Williams' representatives and made it clear that Williams is a priority for the organization. In fact, at the Cowboys' year-end press conference earlier this month, Jones said that Williams is at the top of our list to go out and sign, and that the team would like to get him on a multi-year deal. That kind of language matters. It signals commitment and stability, two things that are incredibly valuable at the running back position. Keeping Williams in Dallas would give the offense a dependable foundation, especially as the coaching staff continues to shape its identity. As free agency approaches, the Cowboys' overall plan is starting to take shape. The emphasis is on retaining key players from last season, guys like Pickens, Williams, and Jadeveon Clowney, while also finding ways to improve the roster, particularly on defense. Stephen Jones acknowledged that the defensive side of the ball still needs work, but he also expressed confidence that the team has the resources to address those issues. Between free agency and the draft, the Cowboys have options. They can add proven veterans, inject young talent, or do a combination of both. The challenge will be using those resources wisely and ensuring that every move aligns with the vision set by the coaching staff. This offseason is not about making noise for the sake of it. It's about building a team that can compete at the highest level when it matters most. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, it's clear that the Cowboys are at a pivotal point. The hire of Christian Parker signals a shift toward intentionality and fit. The desire to retain core players like Pickens and Williams shows a commitment to continuity. And the focus on improving the defense underscores it. The Dallas Cowboys are heading into a full-scale defensive staff reset, and the signals coming out today make one thing clear. Nothing is safe, nothing is settled, and almost everyone is being evaluated under new defensive coordinator Christian Parker. Permission has already been granted for multiple assistant coaches to seek other jobs, while at the same time being told they can interview directly with Parker if they want to stay. That alone tells you this is not a cosmetic reshuffle. This is a philosophical reset. What follows is a breakdown of what's happening, who's vulnerable, who might stay, and who could be coming in based on today's reporting and the names already circulating. A coaching staff in flux by design. This is not chaos. It's controlled change. According to reporting from Calvin Watkins, Cowboys assistant coaches have been told they are free to explore opportunities elsewhere. That kind of move only happens when a new coordinator wants full authority over his room, his terminology, his teaching style, and his culture. Christian Parker is not inheriting a staff and tweaking it. He is auditioning it. At the same time, several Cowboys coaches are already at the Senior Bowl, preparing for practices next week. That detail matters. It means the evaluation process is happening in real time, with Parker and the front office watching how coaches teach, communicate, and lead under pressure. This is a tryout period for coaches. The Christian Parker effect. Parker's arrival as defensive coordinator immediately changed the power structure. Defensive coordinators who are truly empowered don't just call plays, they build ecosystems. That means handpicked position coaches, unified terminology across units, shared teaching philosophy, coaches who align with how the DC wants to attack offenses. Parker is expected to emphasize versatility, communication, and adaptability, especially in the secondary. That lens will shape every staffing decision. Current defensive staff. Who's under the microscope? Let's go position by position. Aaron White-Cotton, defensive line coach. White-Cotton's future is the biggest question mark. The defensive line production has been inconsistent, especially against the run, and Parker may want a different voice and approach up front. White Cotton isn't out, but he's far from secure. If Parker prioritizes aggressive, attacking fronts with heavy rotation and movement, White Cotton will have to convince him he's the right teacher for that vision. Status: unclear, leaning vulnerable. Dave Borgonzi, linebackers coach. Borgonzi is respected, but linebackers are often the heartbeat of a defense, and many coordinators prefer someone they've worked with before in that role. If Parker brings in his own linebackers coach, it would not be surprising. Status: 50/50. Andre Curtis, pass game coordinator. This role becomes tricky under a new DC. If Parker wants tighter control over coverage concepts and route distribution rules, the pass game coordinator role could either be redefined or eliminated. Curtis may need to show flexibility and alignment with Parker's coverage philosophy. Status: role dependent. David Overstreet, 2, secondary/CBs. This is one of the most important positions under Parker. If Parker's background leans heavily toward defensive backs, as many expect, he may want his own secondary coach. That doesn't automatically mean Overstreet is gone, but it does mean he's under intense scrutiny. Status: high-pressure evaluation. Darian Thompson, secondary/nickels. Nickel defenders are critical in modern NFL defenses. Thompson's ability to coach hybrid players who can cover, blitz, and communicate will matter a lot. This role could survive if Parker values continuity in sub-packages. Status: slightly safer than most. J.J. Clark, assistant. Assistants often survive transitions, especially if they're adaptable and willing to shift responsibilities. Status: likely retained in some capacity. Brian Bing, assistant DL coach. If White Cotton goes, Bing likely goes with him. If White Cotton stays, Bing's future improves. Status: tied to White Cotton. Tanzel Smart, assistant/quality control. QC coaches often stay through transitions because they absorb system changes quickly and handle behind-the-scenes work. Status: good chance to stay. Outside interviews, new blood coming in. The Cowboys are not waiting around. They are already interviewing external candidates, and the names tell us a lot about what Parker might be looking for. Marcus Dixon, Vikings defensive line coach. This is a serious candidate. Dixon's resume. Rams assistant DL coach, 2021. Broncos DL coach, 2022 to 2023. Vikings DL coach, 2024, present. That path matters. Dixon has worked in multiple defensive systems, including aggressive fronts and versatile schemes. He's coached both stars and developmental players. If the Cowboys want a modern DL coach who emphasizes flexibility and technique, Dixon checks a lot of boxes. If Dixon is hired, that likely signals the end for White Cotton. Ronell Williams, Eagles assistant linebackers coach. This interview is fascinating. Philadelphia's defensive philosophy emphasizes speed, aggression, and situational adaptability, traits Parker may want to import. Williams has been part of a system that asks linebackers to cover space, communicate quickly, and play fast. If Williams is hired, Borgonzi's role could be in jeopardy. Clayton Adams blocked from Eagles move. Another key detail: Clayton Adams was blocked from going to the Eagles. That tells us two things. The Cowboys still value Adams. They may see him as part of the future, even amid change. Blocking a lateral move during a staff shakeup is a statement. It suggests Adams may be viewed as someone who fits Parker's vision or fills an important internal role. What this all really means: this is not about blame. It's about alignment. The Cowboys are giving Christian Parker the authority to build his defense, not inherit someone else's. Coaches who adapt, align, and communicate well will survive. Those who don't will move on. Expect multiple assistant changes. At least one major position coach replacement. Younger, more versatile coaching hires. Heavy emphasis on teaching DBs and front seven flexibility. By the time training camp arrives, this defensive staff will not look the same. And that's exactly the point. Championship is more important than winning the balance sheet. That naturally brings us to the quarterback conversation, and I know emotions spike every time this comes up. Dak Prescott has been the face of this franchise for years. He's been productive, he's been durable, and he's been a leader. But the NFL is ruthless, and long-term planning at quarterback is not betrayal. It's responsibility. Drafting a quarterback in the 2026 NFL Draft would not be a signal of panic. It would be a signal of intelligence. The best organizations don't wait until decline is obvious. They prepare while things are still stable. You draft, you develop, you create options. And if the young guy never plays, that's a good problem to have. What you cannot afford is being caught unprepared when the position that matters most suddenly becomes a question mark. As we shift into draft evaluations, one player who keeps popping up is Michigan defensive tackle Rayshon Benny. And this is the kind of name that doesn't trend on social media, but wins you games in December and January. Interior defensive linemen who can hold their ground, disrupt timing, and collapse pockets change everything. They make edge rushers better. They make linebackers cleaner. They make coverage easier. This defense has missed that kind of consistent interior presence. And when you zoom out, it's clear the Cowboys need to keep feeding the defensive pipeline. Edge rushers like our Mason Thomas, Romello Height, and Joshua Josephs all bring different tools, but they share one thing in common. They can get after the quarterback. In today's NFL, pressure is currency. You cannot have enough pass rushers. Rotations matter. Fresh legs matter. Injuries happen. The teams still standing in January are the ones that plan for that reality. The same logic applies to the secondary. Cornerback is no longer a luxury position. It's survival. Colton Hood, Julian Neal, Malik Muhammad. These are modern corners. Athletic, confident, willing to play on an island. The Cowboys have seen firsthand what happens when depth disappears at that position. You don't wait until it's a crisis. You draft early, you draft often, and you let competition sort the rest out. Now let's talk about something fans don't always like to admit out loud: cheering against other teams. When you see Cowboys fans rooting against the Seahawks, it's not hate for the sake of hate. It's understanding how draft positioning works. It's recognizing that your future is tied to things beyond your own record. Long-term thinking is uncomfortable, but it's necessary if you want sustained success. Trade rumors always light a spark, and one that keeps resurfacing is the idea of Dallas making a move for Browns cornerback Denzel Ward. This is not a small conversation. This is money, health, draft capital, and expectation all rolled into one. But elite talent rarely becomes available without complications. If you want to win now, you have to accept risk. The real mistake is refusing to even explore the option. Defense, overall, is where the next big decision lives, especially at coordinator. The defensive coordinator hire is not just about scheme. It's about philosophy. It's about adaptability. It's about leadership, whether it's Matt Burke, a surprise candidate, or even a bold swing like Sean McDermott. This decision will echo for years. The wrong hire stalls progress. The right hire elevates everyone. On offense, the idea of Brian Daboll in Dallas is intriguing for a reason. Creativity matters. Flexibility matters. Quarterbacks need answers when defenses adjust. The Cowboys' offense has been good, but good is not the goal. The goal is resilient. The goal is dangerous in multiple ways. The fit would matter, but the conversation itself tells you something important. Fans want evolution, which brings us to ownership and leadership.